Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I was asked to speak about love, and there are so many avenues one can take to speak about love, and it's a question I get very often. A lot of people want to experience this love that religion talks about, and I figured I want to talk about it in my favorite way, which is a very informal way. Plus it's a workshop, so I'd like anyone to just get involved when they want to. I prefer it to be that way, so this is kind of like my baby. The rest of the talks that I've been doing have been everyone else's. So I want to have an atmosphere here tonight, inshallah, today, where we laugh and feel as though this journey of love isn't one that is too high for any of us to experience. And I wanted to show that through showcasing my own journey in using love, which helped me progress in my life. And I'll set off the tone. I just wanted to share this joke. Did you guys hear about the joke when the brothers in the mosque wanted to marry the sheikh's daughter? No one knows that? Okay, good. So the brothers see this sister in the mosque, and they all like her, and so they go to the sheikh. The first one says, Sheikh, salam alaikum. And the sheikh says, alaikum salam. And since we're talking about love, this is a good one. He says, Sheikh, your daughter is very pious and Islamic and beautiful, and I'd like to get to know her if it's okay. The sheikh said, what's your name? And the brother said, my name is Ibrahim. So the sheikh said, read me Surah Ibrahim off by heart. So the guy said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and he tried to do his best, and the sheikh said, okay, not bad. Another brother comes along, and he's like, Sheikhna, I saw your daughter, please help me, I'm trying to get married to a pious woman, is it okay if I can get to know her? And the sheikh said, what's your name? And the brother said, Yasin. So he said, read me Surah Yasin off by heart. And the brother tried his best, and he moved along. The third guy comes and he sees what's coming, and he has a heavy gulp, and he says to the sheikh, Sheikh, salamu alaikum. He says, alaikum salam. Sheikh, can I approach your daughter for marriage? And he says, what's your name? He says, my name is Yusuf, but they call me Qul huwa Allahu. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Right, so we set the tone for love. So a few years ago, so I was born and raised in London, in Tottenham, and I was just a normal kid, and I wasn't too into Islam. I loved going to the Muharram Majalis. The nearest mosque was an hour away from where I lived, so I would only go on Muharram and maybe some days in Shahr Ramadan, and I loved it, but I didn't understand what was going on. I could barely speak Arabic. I think much of the youth here would this may resonate with them when you're growing up and you don't know exactly what's going on. And we didn't have English lectures at the time. So I always loved the feeling, dua and the believers together, but it was never something that I was too into, and I didn't know anything about it really. I was about 19, 20 years old, and I wanted to get more into the religion. I wanted to understand more. But because of the life, I was living a very normal life. I was at university, and I didn't know the resources, couldn't speak the language. So it was always just something that I would do part-time. So that was my starting point. And I just wanted to show you guys the look of the starting point. So this is the guy that thinks he's pretty and is trying some, I don't know what he's doing with his hair exactly. Right? So he's living a completely different lifestyle than an Islamic one. And he doesn't know exactly how to approach this new way of life. But something happened to him when he went to a Spanish island called Lanzarote. Right? So in this island, there are a bunch of volcanoes that don't work anymore, and mountains. And I went there with my friends. And my friends, when they went there, they wanted to go clubbing and everything, and I was trying not to do that stuff. So I would stay home, and I asked them if they would like to come and explore nature with me. and they didn't want to, so I figured it's okay, I'll go on my own, don't wait up. And I just began walking. So I don't know this place, it's a Spanish island. And I reached a beach and I sat there. And in the distance, you know when something's very far and you see fog? So in the distance, I saw mountains and the fog surrounding them, and I figured I want to go there. So I began to walk, and I ended up walking about 7 hours until I reached almost like a desert place. There were no people there. And a lot of things happened on the way, but I'm just trying to make the long story short and not bore you. When I got to this desert area, there were all these mountains. And this is all random, I didn't plan any of it. I figured I want to hike up one of these mountains, and so I did. And I reached the top of one, which is here. Just before I ran out of battery, I placed it at the timer. And I took this picture, so I was in a place very alone. If I was to shout, no one would hear me. And that night really changed my life, because it put a lot of things into perspective. I stood up and I tried to take in the scene, right? The sea was to my right, I could see the city in the distance, and I opened my arms up wide. But then a big gust of wind just came and threw me onto the floor, onto the ground. And I didn't know what just happened. And I tried to get up again, but the gust of wind came again. And when you're very high up above sea level, the wind is very loud. And it began to make that noise, the ghost noise. And my legs really shook up. I froze, I felt a lot of fear. It was probably the second scariest night of my life. And I don't usually get scared of things, so it was a big deal to me to feel scared. I was so scared, in fact, that I couldn't stand up anymore, because I felt that if I stood up, I was going to fall. And I just looked towards the edge, and it was a long way down. And I just began to pulverize myself like, you stupid idiot, what brought you here? What are you doing on this mountain in the middle of nowhere? And I couldn't get down. And soon enough, dusk came, and it was nighttime. So I tried to gather around rocks around me so that I don't fall down, I don't blow over. I thought sincerely that the wind was going to blow me over. And I sat there, tried to dig myself into the ground, and now everything is pitch black. Now the sky and the sea are one, and I can't see anything except the city lights really far away. And I really wanted to get down. I felt very desperate, but up there when I was alone, I had a lot of time to think. And as I was thinking about all the things that I thought had value in my life, I realized they didn't. So the value that I gave to exam results, or the girl I liked, or money, or anything that a young man usually would give value to in life, I realized it didn't matter very much anymore when I thought that I was going to die. I really thought that I was going to die. I was going to make it out of that night alive. And I looked far across to the city, and I kept wondering, what is my life about? What am I supposed to be doing here? And I had my phone, but obviously you're in the middle of nowhere, right? So you can't exactly use your phone. And I played Dua Kumail up there, and I cried my eyes out at the feeling, and I would look around. The memories are still engraved in my mind, the feeling that I was going to die. And I remember the only thing I wanted was to say goodbye to my mother before I went. But it put a lot of things into perspective for me. That the value that I should have given to religion, the value that I should have given to my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was very much underemphasized in my life. I did not put any effort into that journey, and I really regretted it. And at one point, I started hearing barks and dog noises. So if it couldn't get any worse, I thought if I wasn't going to fall, they're going to come and eat me, these wolves or whatever they were. And I had a small Quran with me, the Quran that I could barely read, right? And I hugged it, and I laid down. I remember I laid down on this mountain, and you see how it's like a space around you where there's nothing. And I felt so tiny on this big mountain, and these bigger mountains surrounding it, surrounded by the sea, overtaken by the sky. And I'm just this little ant, when usually I think the world revolves around me. This world revolves around me is how I lived my life, right? It's as if it started when I was born. And now suddenly I realized that it's not. And I looked into the sky, and I saw those stars. All those stars looked so bright in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. And you know those stars, the lights of the stars, those stars are already dead. By the time the light comes to us, by the time we can see the light of the star has died. That's how far away it is. That's how humongous this universe is. And so it put it into my mind, not theoretically anymore. It wasn't like listening to a lecture. It was just too real for me to ignore now. And at that point, soon after, I got this sort of electricity in my legs to come down from the mountain. And I stood up. This was after a few hours up there in the middle of the night. And I kept walking and falling and holding on and walking and until I reached the ground. But I was so scared that I couldn't even look back at the mountain. And now that I was off, I was so happy to be off the mountain, but I'm still in the middle of nowhere. So I found a place and I hid until sunrise. And I remember when sunrise came, it was the best sunrise I'd experienced. And it was a long walk back, and I didn't know where I was, but I managed to find my way back to the beach and back to my friends. But my entire life had changed in one night. As soon as I saw my friends, I wanted to hug them and kiss them. I wanted to value everything that little bit more. And so when I came back to London that year, I decided that my life had to change. That I want to take this journey of love and I want to do whatever it takes to be part of it. I want to understand this Imam that is not here. How can I get closer to him? How can I get closer to this goal? What do I have to do? And so I came back to London. I'm trying to figure these things out. And there are a lot of opportunities now that are happening in my life. I just graduated from university. And one of my friends tells me to go to the mosque with him because he wants to engage in this Quran class. So this is the beginning of my journey to the Hawza. I told him I couldn't read, so I don't want to go. He told me, no, come on, you can read, and we went to Arabic school when we were young, and I could just make out the alphabet. So he dragged me with him, and we went to the mosque that day, and I walked inside, and it was all a bunch of kids, right? 10-year-olds, just a bunch of children, and I had a big beard at the time, and tattoos, and I walked in, and I remember the kids, when they saw my tattoos, they were like, it was the new kid in class, but the new kid was like 15 years older than everyone else. And I sat down with them, and we began to read. And the teacher was about my age. And I would just about be able to keep up with these children. And it was a very humbling experience for me. But language is the key to knowledge. The Arabic language, I wouldn't say that you cannot experience the Quran without Arabic, because Quran itself came down in sound, not in text. That's why it affects so many people who don't even understand it. But I would say that experiencing the Quran in the Arabic language is completely different to experiencing it in English. In Arabic you say love, you say hub, you say mawadda, you say ishq. In English you say love, love, love. Right? And it's so much more than love. It's so rigid and limited. And Arabic was a stepping stone into this journey. And as I sat there, this is why I remember we were trying to read Surah Al-Mulk. And I've said Surah Al-Mulk till now has a very special place in my heart because of that. And this friend, his name is Hussain. This friend, he started staying with me and trying to help me read. And he told me about a dua called Dua Al-Ahd, the dua of allegiance, which you recite every morning to pledge allegiance to Imam al-Mahdi, Ajla Fajr al-Sharif. And so, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so I try to understand religion now from the doorway of knowledge, and I'm trying to gain this language. And then Hassan tells me he's going to Hawza. And I asked him, what's Hawza? And he started to explain. So it's like Sheikh school? And he's like, yeah, Sheikh school. So I figured I wanted to experience this as well. I wasn't thinking I was going to do it for a long time, but I wanted to at least be able to understand the language and gain some Islamic knowledge. But because there were so many opportunities at the time, and I was getting offered jobs left, right, and center, and my family would pressure me so much to go for the jobs and get married and, you know, good things, all good things. But my heart wasn't inclined to those things. I wanted to go back to an Arabian country and learn the language of the Quran and understand Islam. Because that night on the mountain, that's all I wanted. Right? That's what mattered to me. And no one else seemed to understand that. So when I didn't take any of those jobs, everyone was a bit disappointed. And they would say, why do you want to go there? You guys know what people say about sheikhs, right? All those bad things people say about sheikhs. So people would tell me those things. Be like, why do you want to be a sheikh? Or why do you want to go there? And that's actually one of the reasons, because I want to show that it's not about that. And so I ended up joining Hussain, and we went to the Hawza together, but it was very difficult for me in the beginning. It was a culture shock, and I'm trying to get closeness to God. I'm trying to understand this religion, yet I don't even know what everyone's saying. So the language was a big part, was a big block in the beginning, and I would often get calls from home, and my mother would tell me, come on, come back, it's been 8 months, it's been a year. It's been a year and I still don't get it, right? A year of living that way. And it was a hard way to live at the time. So yes, sometimes maybe you have to count pennies in your bag to go buy a bowl of salad because you don't have time to work and you don't want to ask anyone to give you money, especially when everyone told you don't do this and you were offered all those jobs. So you keep it to yourself because you think, because I was thinking, that this is going to bring me closer to God. And this is a journey of love. And I have to keep persevering in this journey, but I could barely understand the language. So just one instance, do you guys know what the word sarhan means? Sarhan? Okay, some people do. Good. I didn't know what it meant. And sarhan means when you're like looking into the distance, you know, like abtishrud. Like you don't know what's going on. Yeah, you're just looking into this and you're daydreaming. And I've never heard this word before, like many other words, but I won't mention because they're too embarrassing. This is semi-embarrassing. And me and Hassan are walking, and I figured everyone knows where Hussain is, Hassan is, where Hassan is, Hussain is. So we're walking, and Abbas's shop was on the right side, and Hassan went into Abbas's shop, and I'm chilling outside, and I'm looking into the distance, and Abbas comes out, and she looks at me and she says, "When Sarhan? Where is Sarhan?" That's what I understood the question as, when Sarhan. So I was like, his name is not Sarhan, his name's Hassan. He's inside. And she started laughing at me. And I didn't understand why. So these things kept happening to me all the time, right? I didn't know the meanings of words, and it was a difficult journey in the beginning. But there was this boy in my class. His name was Mehdi. He was blind. And we would walk him into the class, but he would always sit in the front. And he had a tape recorder. And he would record every class, and that's how he would study. And whenever the teacher would ask a question, the first guy to answer would always be Mehdi. And that made me feel, okay, so maybe I can use being born in London as an excuse, but I have eyes. I mean, that's huge compared to someone, a huge advantage to someone who doesn't. Yet, on a journey of love, he would not let eyesight be a blockage. He would often be one of the first people in the class to answer things. Even if it was incorrect, he'd be brave enough. He never let that hold him back. When we would read Quran, he had the Quran in Braille. He would read with his hands. And so this really inspired me. I couldn't give up. Even if everyone's telling me come back, sure, it's been a year and 3 months now and I'm still having a hard time, I don't know what to do, but I know I can't give up on it. And then there were the African brothers who learned the language faster than I did, right? And they would tell me, like, you Lebanese people, you don't know how to study, right? It was أنتم اللبنانيون and نحن في الجبال ندرس, in the mountains we study, في الطريق ندرس, we study on the roads, we always study. I actually used to see him in the library. He used to tell me أنام على الكتاب لعل الله يعطيني علما, right? I sleep on the book. Hopefully God will give me knowledge if I sleep on the book. So he would literally, I come in the library, I see him, he's got the book there and he's sleeping on it, right? His name was Jundullah. Yeah, Jundua. So I would see these kind of people around me, literally sleeping in the library, literally fighting off disadvantages like not having eyes to read, yet still pursuing a journey of knowledge and love and gaining proximity to God. So I thought, what's stopping me? So I remember that one night I was actually with Jundu in the library, and I was racking my brain trying to revise for this upcoming exam, and I'm feeling very disenchanted with everything. I'm really upset about myself and this difficulty that I've been going through for a long time. And someone told me that Allama Tabatabai, this man, a legend in the Hawza. If you haven't heard of him, I recommend you search him up. Allama Tabatabai, they told me, failed his Arabic course 3 to 4 times when he started the Hawza. And I couldn't believe it, because in the Hawza, this man is a legend. He wrote the Tafsir al-Mizan, the Quranic tafsir. It took over 20 years to compile. And he's a great hero of mine. So whenever I feel down, when I think of him and his path and his journey, he was an orphan. When he was young, he didn't have his parents with him, and he was in the house at a very young age. And apparently he was not very good at Arabic, to the point that his teacher told him, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. And so that hurt him so much. He went and he prayed 2 rak'ahs. And those 2 rak'ahs were so powerful, they changed everything. And he was able to transcend that problem that he had. But I was just so surprised that it was the same problem that I had. And so it gave me motivation to carry on. And that night, when I was going back up to my room, in the same very night, someone had stuck a poster on the wall right outside my bedroom with a letter from Allama Tabatabai, right? And this was no coincidence. The person who stuck it up doesn't know anything about me. And you know in Kung Fu Panda, Master Oogway, what he says, right? There are no coincidences, right? So I read that letter and I translated it. So he says, during my younger days studying Arabic grammar, I didn't find within myself a love for working diligently in my studies. I spent 4 years of my life reading what I did not understand. However, I suddenly transformed after I was encompassed by the care of God. I then found myself to be serious, understanding, driven by an inner impulse to reach perfection. From this time to the last days of my studies, which lasted around 17 years, I never fell into lethargy in the pursuit of knowledge. I even forgot the hardships as well as the pleasures of life, and I left everything except for the people of knowledge, restricting myself to the bare minimum, accepting only the important aspects of life, spending the rest of my time in reading and research. I spent the nights reading until the rise of the sun, especially in the spring and summer seasons. When I was faced with an intellectual problem, I strived to find the answer through all possible angles, to the point that when I sat in a lesson, I had already understood beforehand what was to be taught by the teacher, so I never fell into misunderstanding. That letter impacted me very much. And I made my decision that I was not going to stop. I was going to keep trying. Even though I remember my first class, when I was sitting with Hassan, we were taking notes. He looked at my notes with just one big question mark on the paper. But then I met a man. I met a man, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought this man into my life. His name is Sheikh Hisham Hammoud. Sheikh Hisham was a principal of another hawza in the south of Lebanon. And I told him about my problem, and he told me to come to his hawza and that he would help me. And this is Sheikh Hisham. He's my mentor. And as a principal of the hawza, when I went to his hawza, he would sit with me every night and go through the studies, go through the works, and he kept telling me to persevere. And I tell him, like, I'm trying. And he kept telling me that quote. He said, if you're sincere on your mission, no matter how difficult it gets, it's impossible that Allah will leave you. And this is a very simple advice that anyone can give. But when he gave it, because I saw him exemplify everything that I saw Islam to be, he completely forgets himself in the service of the people. Sometimes people tell me, like, are there true lovers of God? Like, can you really reach that level? I say, yeah, I know them. I've seen them. He was one of them. And he would sit with me every night. So I felt like a sense of importance. Before, no one even knew my name for the last year and a bit in the previous hawza. And every night the principal was sitting with me, and he gave me so much belief in myself. I no longer just wanted to push myself on this. Now I had a mentor. Now I'm seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is opening doors for me. Right? Because I persevered that long. And the Shaykh would keep telling me, as long as you're sincere and you persevere, doors will open and God won't leave you. So I thought, what's the rush? Right? Why rush on the journey? Just keep trying as hard as I can and keep it as sincere as I can, because sincerity really has to be renewed almost every day, let alone every moment. It's not something that once it's sincere forever. And if this was the case, I figured then I will just keep doing what I'm doing. And alhamdulillah, after a while, I got the hang of it. Everything started to click. Logic, Arabic grammar, fiqh, everything slowly just began to make sense to me. I couldn't explain it to anyone. And this was years ago now. Alhamdulillah, now I study with the Arabs in the class. I need a bit more time than everyone else. Like recently I got like a 19 in an exam, and a brother got a 20, and he came to me, he's like, I copied you. And I was like, but you got a 20. He's like, yeah, but I wrote in better Arabic. So there are still skills that have to be acquired, right? And that's okay, that's fine. But as long as you're persistent, as long as you're sincere on the journey, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never leave you. And this was a letter from Allama, and a kind of like a goodbye letter to me. This is how I read it as, Allama Tabatabai. He says, everyone has tasted the sweet and bitter of life in terms of his own experience. I, in my turn, have found myself in varied environments faced with all kinds of hardships, especially since I have spent most of my life as an orphan or a foreigner or far from friends or without means or in other difficulties. I always sensed, however, that an invisible hand has delivered me from every terrible danger, and that a mysterious influence has guided me through 1,000 obstacles towards the goal. Though I be a thorn, and though there be a flower to grace the meadow, I grow by the hand that nurtures me. Right? The humility. Though I be a thorn, and though there be a flower to grace the meadow, I grow by the hand that nurtures me. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Allama Tabatabai was one of those who spoke about the journey of love and the journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A journey that any one of us can take, as you saw from the shabby hairstyle. It's not that you have to dress a certain way or be a certain way or be born in a certain place for you to take a journey of love in Islam. It's wherever you are, whoever you may be, whatever you have done, as Rumi says, come again. Right? Just come back and come again. Everyone is welcome on this journey of love. And Allama would be someone to look to when you want to understand more about this love. But the way we understand this love, those who were at the morning session, we spoke a little bit about this. People claim love all the time, but people don't really act like they are in love. There's a saying that Alamat al-hub ittiba' al-habib. The sign of love is to follow the beloved. But if you don't do what the beloved wants, then why claim that you follow the beloved? Recently a sister asked me, brother, can I be a Sufi? And I asked her, what do you mean you want to be a Sufi? Like you want to change your belief system? Or she says, no, I want to feel spiritual. So I told her, okay, well, Islam has this path in which we are able to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She's like, sure, but I want like the way Rumi speaks about it. I want to lose myself in God. I want to give myself. And with all due respect to the sister, I could see that she was wearing like pretty much cleavage in front of me, right? So not that I'm judging her, but there are things, of course, that everyone should work on. And I told her, okay, sister, one of the greatest mystics, Sheikh Bahjat, he says that take the Risala Amaliyah that all of us should have, right? The Risala from Marja. This is the starting point. I know that the religion is not just the fiqh and the do's and the don'ts and haram and halal, but it's the starting point. And if you are still doing haram, then it's an easy place to begin on your journey to eradicate that haram. Right? Nabi Isa alayhi salam said that you will not attain that which you have until you go through that, attain that which you like, until you go through that which you dislike. There is something that you have to go through that is difficult. There are things that must be given up. You know, Nabi Ibrahim gave away Ismail. He was going to give Ismail to prove his love. What Ismail have we given? What Ismail, would we be ready to give our Ishmael? We all have Ishmaels, right? Ishmael was his prized possession. The son that he's been waiting for so long into his old age. Finally, he was granted the son, and he is told to slaughter him. And he was ready to do that. And we have to be ready to give our Ishmaels up. And if we don't, if there are certain things in our life that we are not ready to give up on the journey of love, then we are just claiming love. And the Prophet's path is a path of love. That's his way. That's the Prophet's way. You know, they call Musa Kalimullah, Isa Ruhullah, Ibrahim Khalilullah, right? And the Prophet would hear that. It's reported that he would hear that and he would say, the one who spoke with Allah is Moses. The friend of Allah is Abraham. The spirit of Allah, Jesus. Wa ana Habibullah. And I am the beloved of Allah. Habibullah, that's the name he was given. Right? So his way is a way of love. That's his way. And this ayah is the greatest exemplification of that. Is قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. If you claim to love God, you say you love God, then follow me. God will love you. Right? We just have to follow the Prophet. That's the path of love. But most of us don't know about our Prophet. Most of us don't understand his life. We don't know the different chapters of his life. Unfortunately, everywhere I go, I try to bring the Prophet into the discourse, and most of us don't know. And how can we follow that which we don't know? Right? The journey of love, we want to speak about love. Go to the beloved of God. It's the simplest way to start. Habibullah is a great way to start the journey of love. Now, when they come to Sheikh Bahjat, this is the letter he gave them. When they asked for the spiritual advice and to start this journey of love. And he says, some ask for advice if they mean that they want to sit and listen again, then I cannot do that. He was a very old man. And he can't always be answering the same questions again and again. But he said, but if they are after Ummul Kalimat, right? What counts, the core, the bullseye, this is it. This is the core. If you're after the core of everything, let me summarize it to you. That suffices for there's absolute salvation in this world and the next. Then let me say that the aim and goal of creation is ubudiyyah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says what? أي لِيَعْرِفُونَ. To worship me, to know me. That's the journey, to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know Him through His names and manifesting those names in us. And the essence of ubudiyyah is refraining from ma'siyah, from sin, from disobeying the beloved. How can I claim love and begin the journey of love when I keep disobeying the one that I love? And Rasulullah sallallahu wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There's a story that I love to remember of his, and has anyone heard the story of Ta'if? Inshallah. Inshallah, then after today we can go and research about Habibullah, and so that we know these stories. And the story of Ta'if is perhaps my favorite story from the Prophet. And it was actually, for the Prophet, he was asked, what day was your hardest day? And usually people would think Uhud, right? And Uhud is when Quraysh came to Medina and surrounded the Muslims, and the Muslims all ran away and they left the Prophet and they jumped on him and they would punch him and he was bloodied, right? And Imam Ali alayhi salam had to come and help him, and they both fought off the army on their own completely until the other Muslims came. And you would think that was his hardest day, but he says no, the day of Ta'if was even harder for me than Uhud. he's reported to have said the day of Ta'if was the hardest day. Now Ta'if is an area about 80 kilometers away from Medina. And those who go on Hajj, they would see that Ta'if is you have to like drive about an hour up to get to the city. It's on a long hill. And at this time, it was, I think, the 8th year after Hijrah, the 8th year in Medina, 8th to 10th. And the Prophet had been propagating Islam for near enough 10 years now. And everyone is still not listening to him. They are hurting his followers. Some of his followers were crucified. Other followers went into exile into Ethiopia. And they were sent out. They lived in a gorge, the gorge of Abu Talib, outside of Makke. And they were starved. They went through a very difficult time. And he was in Mecca. Sorry, Ta'if is 80 kilometers away from Mecca, not Medina. And it was a very difficult time for the Prophet. And it was the 8th year before Hijrah, not after. A very difficult time for the Prophet. And in this time, in the same week, he lost his 2 backbones. He lost Abu Talib, his uncle, and he lost Sayyidah Khadija alayhi salam, his wife, his beloved wife that had been helping him this whole time. He lost both of them in the same week, whilst all of this strain was on his shoulders. And they called this year Aam al-Huzn, the year of sadness, because he had been going through so much. Now, the Prophet came to the conclusion that propagating the message in this city of Mecca isn't going to work out. I'm probably going to have to go somewhere else. So before he went on Hijrah to Medina, he went to Ta'if. And he went there with 2 people. He went with Zayd ibn Harith, the man that the Prophet raised, and he went with Imam Ali alayhi salam. And they left Ta'if together. And they went on this journey, this about 3-4 days long journey into Ta'if. And they went up there. Imagine now, I want you guys to put yourselves in his shoes as much as you can. Make this as personal as you can. He went into Ta'if and he wants to speak about this message, and he tells the people, he goes to the chiefs, he tells them about these idols that you're worshipping. I have come as a prophet, I have a revelation, there is heaven, there is hell, there is one God, this is the path to him, trying to bring them into this journey, into this path. And they would mock him, not reject him, but mock him. They would close the doors in his face. One of the chiefs said to him, the God that you speak of, he couldn't find anyone better than you to send? Another guy said, if you're a prophet, then you're too high, I can't speak to you. But if you're lying, then I don't speak to liars. So they're making fun of him, really. And they make fun of the Prophet, and the Prophet figures, okay, let me speak to the people. Let me try my luck with the people. And he goes to the people and tries to speak to the people about Islam. And the people just, the same way they were treating him in Mecca, they would put their hands in their ears and people would walk away and they don't want to hear it. And this happened on the back of just losing his family to death, until a delegation comes to him and tells him, look, you have to leave, you're not welcome here, you should leave this city. Okay, so imagine taking this long journey. If we just go to the shop and it's closed, we get upset. This long journey, and he has nothing to gain. He's only trying to bring people onto the caravan of love, right? That's Habibullah, and he has nothing to gain from them, and he's being treated in this way, and they tell him, you should leave. He said, okay, I get the message. So he tells the Imam, and he tells Zayd, let's pack up, let's go. And as they're leaving, it's not enough. They want to humiliate him. And the Prophet is a noble man from the tribe of Quraysh. So he's a noble man. Before that, before he's a prophet anyway. Before thinking of him as a prophet, he was in a very high tribe. So to be humiliated in this way is very difficult. And they lined up a bunch of stones, reaching to the outside of the city. And all the kids would line up on both sides. And as the Prophet was walking outside, they began to hold the stones and the rocks and throwing them at him. And they would aim for his feet, because they wanted to bruise his feet so he has a long journey home. And even some of the reports, they say that, when blood becomes dry and sticky, blood would go into his shoes, that the shoes would be hard to take off. Right? And they try, imagine it, doing it to the Prophet. And Zayd would try to get in the way, and a boulder hit Zayd's head and he started bleeding. And this is the part that breaks my heart the most. He started walking faster. right? I just imagine him walking, starting to walk faster as they're throwing these rocks. And Imam Ali alayhi salam would get in the way and stop them. And the Prophet, as he left, this is how the people treat him after he's trying to bring them. And we have to think to ourselves how many stones we throw at him because he tries to invite us to his way all the time, every day, and we keep saying no. And he walks out. Finally, they leave the city. The Prophet walks out, and he must be so hurt, and he finds a tree. And he sits under that tree. And he starts to recite some of the words that, to me, are some of the most beautiful words I've ever come across in our tradition. And subhanAllah, they're the same words that Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam uses before he goes to Karbala in Arafah, in Dua Arafah. Right? You know, Dua Arafah, those are the words of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. And he uses the same words as his grandfather. In those moments of desperation, that sorrow that the Prophet felt, he said these words, and Imam Hussain knew what was coming, and he said the same words. And as the Prophet sat down, he looked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he said, "Ila man takiluni." To who are you going to give me to? Right? He sits down because he feels helpless. As in, I have no power over myself. You're the one that's going to give me wherever you want. Ila man takiluni. Ila qaribin fayaqta'uni. To someone that's close to me, that's going to cut me off. Am ila ba'idin yatajahhamuni. Or someone who's far, that's going to be like a fire for me. You know, he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if this is happening because of your anger, then I can't handle that. Then something has to be done. But if you're not angry at me, then it's okay. Then all the things that I'm going through, then that's fine. As long as you're not angry at me, because I'll understand. I'll see the light. And Imam Hussain says those words at the end. He says, فَإِلَىٰ غَيْرِكَ لَا تَكِلْنِي. Don't give me to anyone else but you. Don't entrust me to anyone else but you. Everyone else is going to leave me. Eventually, everyone leaves us, guys. Everyone. The only one that stays is the beloved. The beloved was there when you were born, and only the beloved will be there when you go back. And we belong to him, and to him we return. And we have to know that from now, because this journey is happening whether we like it or not. Either we're going to go there not prepared, or we're going to go there. This whole journey is so that we're ready to die. Mutu qabla an tamutu. Die before you die. And if you reach death before you're ready to go, you're going to want to hold on to this world. The journey is happening and time is ticking. So you want to jump on the caravan, everyone's welcome. But if you don't want to, then it's your own loss. You're just like the people of Ta'if. But the Prophet wants to take us, he wants to take us, and he wants us. This is the language of love. Ila man takiluni, ila ghayrika la takilni. That's language of love. That's how they would speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how Imam Hussain would speak to Allah. Bika antasiru fansurni. Through you I'm victorious, so make me victorious. Minka atlubul wusula ilayk. From you I ask to reach you through you. Bika astadillu alayk. Right? I find you through you. So this language of love, they keep using this language. Tahirni min shakki wa shirki wa akhrijni min dhulli nafsi. Purify me from my doubts and my polytheism in my heart. Right now we have fake gods in our heart. They're not statues. But they're other gods that we go to aside from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our modern lives. It's not a far away thing to think about, far away concept. We all go through this. He said, وَأَخْرِجْنِي مِن ضُلِّ نَفْسِي. And take me out of the shadows of myself. It's a language of love, and this is the language we want to speak with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why so often the poets would use Layla and Majnoon in our tradition. Right? Arafat, you know Layla and Majnoon. The love story between Layla and Majnoon, who's crazy about Layla, who wants to do anything for Layla. Sometimes they call him Qais. Right? But Layla can easily be understood as a woman, but she's actually a symbol of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When those Arafat are speaking about Layla, they're saying, this Majnoon is crazy about you, be Majnoon for God. That's the Layla they're speaking about. That's the Layla. So when Majnoon knocks on the door, and Layla asks, who is it? And he says, it's me. And he knocks again. And Layla says, who is it? And he says, Anti, it's just you. There's just Layla. There is no one else, because there's no one else except the beloved. When you come to the beloved, you don't even see yourself anymore. It demolishes your ego. Everything becomes for the one that you love. And this poem I wanted to share with you. This one night, desperate Majnun prayed tearfully, O Lord of mine, who has abandoned me, why hast thou Majnun called me? Why hast thou made a lover of Layla of me? Thou hast made me a pillow of wild thorns, made me roam day and night without a home. What dost thou want from my imprisonment, O Lord of mine? Listen to my plea. The Lord replied, O lost man, with Layla's love I have your heart filled. The beauty of Layla that you see is just another reflection of me. And this journey to Layla, we have to become like Majnun. We have to see the path as a path of love. It's a relationship greater than any human relationship. In fact, when your human relationships are dominated by this overbearing relationship, everything to you, you cannot look away from God. Imam Ali Islam said, I saw nothing except that I saw God in it, before it and after it. Too in love with the beloved to see anything else. So you begin to love everyone else more through Allah, instead of loving them on a horizontal level. Go up and then come down. Right? Be Rahman to the people. Be Rahim to the people. Use those words that are inside you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put potentially inside us, those names, to manifest to the people. Love them through God, through the beloved. It's a journey of love. This is our way. This is really our way, and people don't know that. We don't even know that. Why don't we know that? Right? It's too overbearing in our tradition to ignore. But most people ignore it. Most people just want to ask about what is halal and what's haram, and music and makeup and hijab and these things. I mean, they're not bad things, but shouldn't we be trying to love? Right? Why have we forgotten? Those laws were there to take us to a path of love, not just for the law. Those laws are means, they're not the goal. And we look at them as the goal, and they're not the goal. They're just a means to the goal. They have to be there, they're necessary, but they're a means to the goal. And the man who most exemplifies that journey is a man by the name of Salman. Salman al-Farisi, or Salman al-Muhammadi as is known. And Salman was on a journey of love. And if you want to be on a journey of love, then be like Salman. No one can say, but he's a ma'soom. He's not a ma'soom. And no one can say, well, he was born with advantage. No, he wasn't, because he was born as a Zoroastrian. Right? He's born into an aristocrat family. Zoroastrians in Persia, and his father was a very rich man. And when Salman was 16 years old, his father found a way to put him into the chapel, the Zoroastrian chapel, and Salman always wanted to find the truth, and the pursuit of knowledge was his aim. And he kept studying, and he studied all the books of the Zoroastrians until he was about 19 years old. And then in that year, when he was 19 years old, he was going down the town. His father sent him to another house because they had so many lands that they were selling. So Salman went to meet these people who wanted to buy this house. On the way, he sees a house that is shaped different to other houses with interesting architecture. It was actually a church. And he hears songs coming from this church. And he goes into the church and he sees these people singing amazing songs about God and Jesus, and he is so enchanted. He can't believe what he's hearing. He feels so enlightened, and he asks them, who is Jesus? Who is this God? And they tell him. And they tell him Jesus to them is the Son of God, and God is one. And they would tell him their theology, and they would speak to him about love of God. And he was so enchanted by this. And he went back to his father and he told them, and his father was raged. And he told them he can never go there again. But he thought, no, he wants to go again. He found this God to be greater than this Lord of fire that he's been used to. And his father forbade him and told him, if you go, I will chain you. I will lock you in this house. And Salman refused, and so he did. He locked him into the dungeons of the same house. In the basement of that house, Salman gave up everything because he felt he wanted to find God. And he didn't even find the truth of it yet, right? But he felt something, and he couldn't turn back on that because the journey of love was too important to him. And when he was in that dungeon, wrapped in those chains, a man, the bodyguard that was there, that was living there the whole time since Salman was a young boy, he told Salman that the priests had gotten in touch with him and they would help him to go on a caravan to Syria and get away and go to stay with the priests in the temples of Syria. So he told him, would you want to? And Salman told him, yes, please let me go, but he can never come back again. And so Salman escaped from the dungeon and went and met with the Christians, and the Christians put him onto the caravan and he went to Syria. And there he spent about 10 years trying to connect to the Lord through Jesus Christ. And he became a Christian alim, but he felt something was missing. And he would travel Syria, and then he went to Iraq, he went to Mosul, and he would stay another 10 years. And he would stay with the priest there, still trying to find the truth, never stopping, never thinking, I finally found it. Right? This crazy journey. This is a real story. This is a real man. A real story. But this man would not be stopped. That's love. He kept going around trying to find it. That's ishq. You know ishq. What ishq is. It's more than love. They say, dawa'ul ishq al-ittisal. Right? The only cure for ishq is the connection. He can't stop because this ishq is like a disease to him. He can't stop. He's sick. He wants to find a cure. He needs to find that. He needs to end this. The ishq is too powerful. It's like a disease to him. Ishq is a good thing, but I'm explaining it in a metaphorical context. Right? And he keeps traveling, and he goes to Palestine now. Right? All these holy lands that he's trying to find the truth in. And a priest there, before he dies, he tells him, there's a man that people are beginning to speak about in Arabia. And he claims that he is a prophet of God. And he has a mark on the back of his neck. He has a mark. The seal of prophethood, he called it. And he doesn't accept charity. He doesn't accept charity. And so man heard about this man, and his heart began to change. He wanted to find this man. Who is this man that the priest is telling me about? And he says that he's connected to Jesus Christ. And the priest dies in some narrations, and others, I don't know what happens to him exactly. But in any case, Salman now wants to go to Arabia. After all these decades of trying to find the beloved, he hears about this man. They say the ear has ishq before the eye. Right? You hear about someone, you have ishq for them. So he's hearing about him, and he starts to develop this ishq. And he meets these people who are going to Arabia on a caravan. And he tells them, can I ride along? And they say, of course. And Salman was a very big man with a broad chest, very strong. And he got onto the caravan, but instead of taking him towards Mecca, where the Prophet was, they took him to a completely different area in Arabia. And they enslaved him. They made him into a slave. Right? They overpowered him and enslaved him, and they put him onto the slave market. And a Jewish man by the name of Harith, he brought him. And once he brought Salman, now Salman's his property, and he takes him to Medina. So you can imagine Salman caged up now as a slave, who is basically, he's a noble man of knowledge. He has studied for decades as a Zoroastrian priest and as a Christian priest. Right? A man of meditation and spirituality, trying to find the truth, enslaved. Look at all these obstacles, man. Right? We don't go through these things. We give up so easily. Look what he's going through. Nothing stopped him. Now he's a slave and he's taken to Medina. But subhanAllah, how Allah works, right? Because where did the Prophet do hijrah to? To Medina. And so, now Salman is in his dungeon in Medina, or his cell, and he comes out and he works for this Jewish man all the time, like a dog, the way he's working for him. Just enslaved and can have no mind of his own. It's very strong, so he's an expensive slave. And he fetches the dates from the trees, and one day, as he's fetching these dates, he hears that his owner is speaking with his cousin, and they're speaking, and they say, do you hear what's happened? How these tribes have invited this man from Mecca into Medina, and he's on the outskirts of Medina right now. And Salman's hearing this. Say, what's his name? They're speaking. And the guy tells him, Muhammad, and he claims he's the prophet of God. And as soon as Salman hears this, Muhammad, his entire being is taken over. And he comes down and he asks his owner, what happened? Who is this man, Muhammad? And his owner was so outraged by that he slapped Salman. He slapped Salman, told him, what are you talking about, you slave, go back. Did I tell you to speak? And so Salman goes back, but he's happy. He doesn't care that he just got slapped. He doesn't care that he's a slave. It's Muhammad, 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 Habibullah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now this word is in his mind, it's in his heart, it has encompassed his entire being. And he's thinking now of a way, how can I go find him? I've traveled all the lands and all these years to find him. And he's trying to find him, and he finally gets a chance to sneak away and go see him. And he sees the people surrounding him, and he wants to find out, is this really him? So he gets some food, and he goes to him and he gives it to him as charity. And the Prophet takes it, and then he gives it to his friends to eat it, because he doesn't accept charity, as the priest told him back in Palestine. And then he gives him other food, and he tells him, this is a gift. And the Prophet takes this, and then he eats from it. And now Salman's beginning to see this is him. He just has to try to find that birthmark. And he sees the birthmark, and he knows this is the man I've been searching for all these decades. Right, and you can imagine the scene. Now, it doesn't write it, but you can imagine the scene how he is, right? I always imagine it like he jumps on him and tells him, like, I've been going through everything. I was a Zoroastrian priest, and I went to Syria. I was a Christian, and I came, and I got trying to put me in the mean slave, right? That's how I imagine it, right? I've been searching for you this whole time. And the Prophet, of course, in his elegant manner, smiles and tells him that he'll help him. He says, I'm a slave now, I need help, and he'll help him. So the Prophet goes to the Jewish man with the Muslims, and he tells him, I want to buy this slave. And the man says, no, this slave is very expensive, you can't buy this slave. And the Prophet said, name your price. And the man says, I think it was 40 ounces of gold and 300 palm trees. So the Prophet then said, okay, who of the Muslims would like to donate palm trees? And one Muslim would say, I have 10 palm trees, Ya Rasulullah. Another man would say, I'll give 20. Another man would say 30. And they all start to plant the palm trees until they reach 300. And the Prophet says, the gold is on me. And they free Salman. And Salman becomes, to me, from what I've found, Salman is the greatest after the Ahlul Bayt. The greatest companion. He is the ultimate Shi'i, if you want to find the Shi'i. Right? More than Ammar. More than Abu Dhar. Of course, this is debatable between people, but this is personally my opinion. And he's the one that I connect to the most. He has such a human element, and he was on the path of love. And he understood things that the other companions wouldn't understand. And he was so strong. Like when they were digging the trench in Khaybar, he would have like his own place where he would just break the boulders because of his strength. And all the people, because he's a Persian, right? And there was a lot of racism at the time, but all the Muslims would want him to be of their tribe and their people. Right? No, Salman's one of us. No, Salman's one of us. And the Prophet said, no, Salman minna Ahlul Bayt. Right? And that's why he became known as Salman al-Muhammadi. He's from Ahlul Bayt. He's not from anyone else. And this is, when you are on this journey of love, the Ahlul Bayt include you into their family. Right? It's that ultimate extreme sincerity that you have to show, and that journey you must go on. So, journey of love. This is Salman's journey of love. Yes, journey of love. Journey of love. Journey through the desert on your own until you find the beloved. And it's a very difficult journey, and it's a journey of hardship and a journey of struggle. But you're going to go through struggle in life anyway. Why not make it count? Why not make it count? You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. To live a true life. You know, we look at these movies and we think, I wish I could live like that, you know? Like you watch The Lost Samurai and you think, wow, like that traditional life and the way they are. And who said we can't? It's just a different way of perspective, a different way of approaching things. This is real. It's not just stories. Wallah, it's not. Wallah, if you leave here and you think that I'm just speaking stories, and wallah, it was a nice story that he said, and that you missed the point. It's not the stories, it's the feeling. You have to feel it. It's not words. You have to feel it inside you. All these things we're saying right now, these things I'm just saying, these words, they don't matter. It's just knowledge that's being laid over to you, and it might be taken in or taken out. Knowledge, direct knowledge, is what changes you. Right? Search yourself. Find yourself through yourself, not through anyone else. Right? He who looks to find himself through others will never know himself. He who finds himself through himself will know himself. And who knows himself knows his Lord. So it's an inner journey. It was always an inner journey. That's why when you go to Lebanon and you see the shuhada, and at the back, anyone who's been there, there's like 4 graves of those shuhada, and they have no names. Right? No one knows who they are. Even their parents don't know. Allah knows though. That's all that mattered. It was an inner journey. They knew what they did, and that's all that mattered. It was never an outer journey. It was all inside. Maybe no one will know the name. And I remember my cousin, she asked me, Hussain, if you come closer to Allah, do you face more hardship? Because I came across a narration, Inna habba Allah abdan ibtalah. If Allah loves a servant or a slave, He gives them hardship. And she's like, is that true? And I said, yeah, it's true. If you look at the people who are the closest to Allah, they had the hardest lives. I mean, could you even go through Ta'if yourself? Right? Karbala? Right? Everything Abraham went through, Moses, all those years in the desert, and Jesus and Mary, the way everyone accuses her and she stays silent. This is it. This is the path. The path is very difficult. And if you want to come closer, it's very hard. If you want to stay where you are, that's okay. Don't worry. That's fine. It's not bad that you don't want to take the journey of love, because the journey of love, it quite literally kills you. And I'm going to talk about that right now. But if you don't want to take it, that's fine. But a lot of people who try to take it, they try, they pray to Allah, Allah, give me the maqamat, give me those high stations. And Allah looks at them and, Jibreel, just slap your wing on this guy. Let me see if he's sincere, right? And just a little flap of the wings and Ya Allah, why me? Why me? Right? Why? You broke. You couldn't handle it. You tried to take the journey and you broke. Never. You say Alhamdulillah on the journey for all those hardships. So you don't have to take the journey, but I just don't see why anyone wouldn't want to. I mean, what is a bit of hardship in this life that we are bound to go through anyway? And so I'll just finish off with this hadith. It's my favorite hadith, and those who have listened to my lectures before will have come across this definitely. As someone's nodding over there, definitely. But for those who haven't, I always have to share this hadith wherever I go. And it's a hadith Qudsi, which means it's a hadith from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking to us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man talabani wajadani. Whoever searched for me found me. وَمَنْ وَجَدَنِي عَرَفَنِي. And whoever found me knew me. وَمَنْ عَرَفَنِي أَحَبَّنِي. And whoever knew me loved me. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّنِي عَشَقَنِي. And whoever loved me truly loved me, had ishq for me. وَمَنْ عَشَقَنِي عَشَقْتُهُ. And whoever has ishq for me, I have ishq for him. وَمَنْ عَشَقْتُهُ قَتَلْتُهُ. Whoever I have ishq for, I kill. Right? It's very heavy. And in Islam, whoever is killed by someone else, there is a blood money that must be paid. Right? It's called a diya. It's a recompense, blood money, legally speaking. So Allah carries on the hadith. He says, وَمَنْ قَتَلْتُهُ فَعَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ. Whoever I kill after this long journey, whoever searched for me, found me, whoever found me, knew me, whoever knew me, loved me, whoever loved me, had ishq for me, whoever had ishq for me, I have ishq for him. Whoever I have ishq for, I kill. And whoever I kill, his blood money is upon me. وَعَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ. Okay, what is the blood money? وَأَنَا دِيَّتُهُ. I am his blood money. I am his recompense. I will give him myself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying himself. You know what that means? That means everything. So why not go on the journey of love? You have nothing to lose. you have everything to gain. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.